The Automobile Association has raised concern over the Department of Transport's decision to appoint IDEMIA Identity and Security South Africa to produce South Africa's new smart driver license cards. The firm is a subsidiary of French multinational technology company. Joining us to discuss IDEMIA's appointment is the Automobile Association's Layton Beard. Good evening, Layton. Thank you very much for joining us on The Full View. So, of the 5 bids that the department received, IDEMIA came out on top. However, you're concerned that this company would have been appointed. Just talk us through your concerns.
Well, I think the first concern we have is that this is a company who had a contract existing with the Airports Company of South Africa. And that company, that contract was terminated not even a week ago, in fact, last Tuesday. By the Airports Company on the basis that there were irregularities with the awarding of that tender. Now, that is an investigation that's ongoing and no doubt will end up in the courts. But at the same time as you have a company whose reputation has been brought into question in this manner by an entity of the Department of Transport, AXA, you have the Department of Transport entering into another contract with this company to the value of close to R1 billion. And I think if anybody is looking at that objectively, it would raise some serious concerns. Now, I know that the Department of Transport through Mr. Msibi will tell you that they're in a catch-22 position and that they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. The problem is that in this instance, we feel the Department A should have waited until any issues of impropriety were clarified against IDEMIA.
I'm glad, pardon me for interjecting there, I'm glad you already preempt what would be their response, because even the presumption of innocent until proven guilty would be at play here, where if you've got 5 bidders, and then there's one who is dealing with some allegations at this point, but it hasn't been proven conclusively that they were guilty. There were allegations of preferential treatment, etc. Then the department could easily be found wanting or even sued, wouldn't you say, in this respect, where they now deny this opportunity to IDEMIA?
Well, by the same token that you say there's no evidence to prove that they were, there's no evidence to prove that they weren't. And I think that in this regard, the argument of innocent until proven guilty simply doesn't hold any water. The fact of the matter is that if that were to be the case, and IDEMIA were to be found guilty, what is the position of the department in that regard? And for them to say, well, we have to wait until this plays out, gives an impression that they are hoping for a specific outcome. And unfortunately, we can't be running government departments on hope. We need to be running them on facts. And we can't forget, Mfundo, this is almost R1 billion of public money at stake here. And I think the public has a right to understand, A, how this company was appointed, B, why the other companies were not selected, and very critically, and this is a question we've asked of the department several times, and we haven't received an answer, how was the government printing works involved in the creation of the bid, in the evaluation of the bid, and more crucially, why were they not asked to bid themselves, given that they are responsible for printing security documents for the country all the time?
So at this point, you're saying what would at least satisfy you guys is if perhaps there was a level of transparency around the other bidders. They have an open situation where it's stated why exactly the other bids failed, but beyond this, you're saying they should start afresh.
Well, I think that certainly the signing of the service level agreement now with IDEMIA should be suspended. And we should wait for all the facts to come in regarding their position. But at the same time, I think we have a right to understand exactly what made them the preferred bidder in the first place, what made the others not the preferred bidders. And I think we need to understand that. And again, I raised this issue of the government printing works. To what extent have they been involved, and what advice and leadership have they given on a matter involving printing as the government printing works to the Department of Transport in this process, or more pointedly to the driving license card account, which manages this process.
There are billions of rands at stake here. Do you believe
that... 8 billion at the moment, not billions, but at the moment $1 billion, yes.
Now, with just this specific contract having been announced in 2022, at the very least, that we needed to move to the new licenses, do you think we can afford at this point to continue to delay it because of the amount of money? that's at stake?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I'm sure Colin would agree that no, we can't. And I think the situation that we're in, and I think that we agree with him on that, and we agree with the department on that view, certainly. I think the need for the cards has now, been discussed, and we passed the justification for that process. The problem is that in the previous environment, we had one card machine that was printing, these cards. We saw the problems that occurred when this thing went down. There was a need to have better security features within the card, and this is exactly why the decision was made to move ahead with it. Besides the whole issue of digitization, where you could use your fingerprint and so forth. But the point is that this is a massive contract. There is a need for these cards to be printed. We can't afford not to have this done. Mm-hmm. Too many people rely on these documents, so it has to be done. But that doesn't mean it has to be done behind closed doors. The process must be transparent, open, and honest, and people have a right to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So at the very least, the transparency exercise that you're calling for now must happen very quickly.
It certainly must, and there must be reasonable justification for decisions that have been made. Answers that satisfy the curiosity not only of the AA, but of the public of South Africa, that provide answers that say this is why we made this decision, and we can stand by those decisions, and they're justifiable. Involving a company whose contract was terminated by an entity of the Department of Transport less than a week ago, and now having them involved in a contract worth R1 billion, I think is a serious concern. And as we mentioned yesterday, it raises issues around the process. And I think justifiably South Africans have a right to be skeptical about this going forward, when at the outset, these are the problems that we are faced with.
Layton, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Automobile Association's Layton Beard speaking to us.